Hi guys, welcome to a new video. So in this video I'm going to explain the differences between the sun sign and the moon sign in your personal birth chart, and regardless of what sign they're in, I'm going to just mention the differences. Now of course I've touched on this before in previous videos on my channel, but I thought I'd go into it in just a little bit more detail. I'm not sure if any of you need any extra detail, but I thought that that would be a good video idea, so I thought I'll just go into some more depth in that. So basically, as I already said quite a bit on previous videos, if you've seen any of them, pretty much any of them basically, I did just basically say that the sun sign, now your sun is the one that everyone kind of knows. So say someone says to you, "What is your zodiac sign?" They are referring to your sun sign, and then obviously, if you know what sign you're meant to have been born under, which even if you know nothing about astrology, most people do know that sign, you're going to say that sign that you're born under in response to their question, but that will be in reference to just your sun sign. Now, the moon sign, less people even know about. Basically, most people who are highly skeptical of astrology being like possibly, accurate or real in general, they seem to think that it's just your sun sign, therefore 12 different personality types for every person that lives on the planet, and then that's it. And then they will, as soon as something that in astrology is meant to happen to their sign and it doesn't, they just write off astrology and think it's not real. But most of those people who are skeptical of it, they don't realize that your chart is actually incredibly complex. There isn't just your sun sign. Most people think it's just your sun sign. Some people with a bit more knowledge will know about your moon sign and your rising sign, even maybe, but they won't know about the fact that every other planet in astronomy in the solar system is also included as part of your chart, and that's all in specific signs as well. Then you've got the North Node and the South Node, which are not actually planets, they're just like abstract points that have been worked out mathematically in astrology, which are also meant to have meaning, personality wise, to a certain extent. And it's how all of these things combine at the time that you was born in order to kind of influence your personality. But even then, it's not necessarily that you're going to act on that personality. It's more core character traits rather than dictating your whole personality as a whole, because obviously everyone is different, they're brought up differently, they've got different genetic codes. So obviously it's not the be all and end all, but it's more core character traits, not so much your execution of those character traits or how you choose to express them, if you sort of get what I mean. So it's like it kind of gives you an inclination as to what you might respond like in certain situations, but how you choose to express that energy and manifest that energy as an individual obviously is up to you, and also combines with your upbringing and your instincts, your biology of your body, even. And obviously, that's all going to interact to influence change in your personality. But it's just the core character traits. Not everyone follows them, even then, but it's still just core character traits that some people do find has some accuracy toward their life. But sorry for going off on a bit of a tangent, but that's kind of just explaining in more detail that astrology is a lot more complicated than, especially a lot more complicated than just having your sun sign that you're born under. So it makes it, I think, a little bit more credible when you look at the whole chart and you do start to see a few more sort of what do you call it? A few more sort of trends that do work out in your life quite accurately. Of course, the chances of finding a correlation dramatically increase when you look more and more detail into your chart. So yeah, it's actually incredibly complex. I've heard other astrologers say that your chart is like a snowflake and that it's completely unique to you. Unless you're like an identical twin or something, you're very unlikely to find anyone else in the entire world that has the exact same birth chart as you, even if some people will have it very similar. So that's just that. Okay, so the most important placements in your chart, you've got your rising sign, which I don't know if I need to do a video explaining just the rising sign because I've said that quite a lot in previous videos. And unlike the sun and moon, I guess it's a bit more basic. So I'm not sure if I need to do that necessarily. But the rising and then your sun and then your moon are basically the most important placements in your chart, I guess you could argue. Arguably, they are the most core of your personality. But the difference then, so the sun sign is obviously the one everyone knows about. Like when people ask you what is your zodiac sign, that's your sun sign. When you respond with what sign you were born under, what month of the year that you was born under, and what sign that correlates to, that is referring to your sun sign. Now, the sun sign is meant to be your personality. It's your ego-driven sort of personality. It's more what you show openly to other people on the outside, but it isn't the rising sign, which is what you come across like to other people in the outside world who don't know you very well. The rising sign's almost like a filter over your eyes with which you perceive the world and then express yourself to the world, to like strangers or people you don't know very well, or like loose acquaintances, people like that. It's a lot more superficial. It's not actually who you really are necessarily. It's just your first lens that you filter the world through. Your sun sign, though, it's more deeper. So your sun is more your actual personality, but it is the more ego-driven side. It's the more showy sort of side. The sun is a masculine planet in astrology in terms of its energy type, and of course, if you think about the little sun, it obviously is light, it's heat, it is the creator of all life on Earth. So that reflects pretty accurately on what the sun in astrology is meant to stand for. Now, the moon is a lot deeper again than your sun sign. I like to think of it kind of like your logical brain, in a sense, could be your sun, I guess you could say, and then your heart or your deeper soul on a deeper internal level is more what your moon would represent, I guess you could say. That's kind of just an analogy that I personally use to understand it a bit better. So I guess you could say that it's your head versus your heart, where your heart is your moon, your head is more your sun. Another way you can have it said is that your moon is basically the child within you, or the sort of instinctive reactions that you have inside of you, and more what your soul is. And then your sun is like the adult within you. Your sun is like the one who will filter everything that's coming out. So obviously you have all your other planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and whatever each planet signifies, whatever sign in your chart that they are placed in influences that aspect of your life that that planet would influence. But your sun and moon are a bit broader, which is why they're so important. Your sun is just your whole personality in general. Now, the home sign for Leo, the sign that the sun rules, is Leo. So the home sign for the sun, sorry, is Leo. So if you think of the Leo character as a zodiac sign, um, they're very egocentric. They can be quite showy. They can be sort of very much wanting to be the center of attention, because obviously the sun in the sky is the center of attention. It's daytime. It's the creator of life. It's how things get moving. So that's kind of the spotlight. That's kind of what the sun is, no matter what sign in your chart it's under. That is the sun's own individual energy. So each planet in astrology has their own individual energy type that they have on their own, and then that is influenced and altered by what sign they are transiting at a given time. So my sun sign, for example, is Pisces. So the sun, obviously on its own, exists with its own individual energy, which is basically the Leo type energy, which is, center of attention, all of that. But the time I was born, the sun was transiting the Pisces sign. So that will influence the sun's core personality that it has on its own, and filter that through each sign that it's in. So for me, it's filtering it through the Pisces sign. The moon is the same, of course. Every planet has its own character that it exists as on its own, every planet. And then again, that will interact with whatever sign it's transiting at the time, and it will alter that somewhat. So the moon is a feminine energy type planet. It stands for emotions. It stands for instinctive reactions. It's more the childish sort of urges you have, your deeper sense of emotional sort of security. So where your moon is indicates what you need in your life in order to feel secure on an emotional level. The sun indicates more what you're striving to become throughout the course of your life in order to fulfill your full potential as a person. So that's kind of the difference as well. It's like the moon is kind of what you are born as. The moon is kind of what you already are. You don't need to try to put in any effort really to be your moon, because your moon, as I say, it's like your soul. It's your internal soul. It's your heart. It's kind of what you already are. So the sign that the moon's in influences kind of what your most basic innate sort of character traits as a person are. But your sun is not as deep. Your sun's kind of a filtered version. It's like I like to think that the moon is the purest sort of representation of the energy of each sign. I will quickly go through each sign in a minute, but yeah, and then the sun is kind of filtered because the sun is normally a lot more dominant because the sun is the masculine energy type. The sun is more of an ego-driven personality. So the key words really to remember, I think, are that the moon is an instinct-driven personality or kind of a heart-centered sort of character, and then your son is more of an ego-driven or more of a logical, brain-centered sort of character. Um, the sun is more obvious than the moon is to other people who are closer to you. I mean, in order to see someone's moon sign, you have to be very, very close to them and intimately connected, say in a deeply loving romantic relationship, because the moon is also very private, because it's instinctive, and the moon on its own, its character on its own, is already very reserved and subtle. So because of that, the character of the moon means that whatever side the moon is in a person's character, the moon is going to be a lot more sort of under wraps. The moon is very, very private. It's not showy because obviously nighttime it's not as bright as daytime. So the moon is kind of similar in the sense that it's always in the dark. People are always left somewhat in the dark about your true character as a person because that's what your moon would represent for you. And obviously at night time it's dark and when it's the daytime it's bright. So that kind of is another way I like to personally use to understand it myself personally is that I think of daytime, obviously it's bright, it's illuminated. Nighttime, it's dark, it's under wraps, it's more hidden. So again, the moon is kind of very hidden, it's under wraps. The sun just is a spotlight, basically. It illuminates anything. Whatever's in the way of the sun is going to illuminate it like a spotlight, like on a stage. So it's like the sign that your sun's in is a lot more obvious to other people because it's kind of what's illuminated. It's what part of your life is in a spotlight, if you like, at the time. Um, and then your moon is sort of what you have on a deeper level, and it's more intense normally. It does depend what sign a moon is transiting in your chart, but the moon is a lot more sort of like nighttime. It's not daytime, it's not bright, it's dark. It's like it's not as obvious for that reason to other people. It's kind of deeper inside of you. It's more also your subconscious mind, whereas the sun is more of your conscious mind. It's another way to kind of think of it. So if I go through each sign quickly of the zodiac then. So Aries, because they come first, we'll just do them first. So Aries sun. Now, Aries sun, the sun is happy in Aries because Aries actually exalts the sun, in other words, strengthens its energy type. So the sun's working in a happy and a high capacity in the Aries sign. Now, an Aries sun is not as intense or as aggressive as an Aries moon because with the sun, obviously the sun's already quite a dynamic masculine energy type on its own. So then when it's in Aries, which is also a dynamic masculine aggressive sort of energy type to its sign ethos, when they combine, of course, it adds up to even more of a masculine, dominant, aggressive energy because the sun is in Aries, and it also strengthens the sun's natural character as well because the sun's exalted in that sign as well. So it adds up to being this very strong ego-driven personality. It basically strengthens all the core character traits of the sun's energy when that is placed in Aries. It strengthens the sun's natural energy and it lets it shine through its full capacity and even stronger than it would be in Leo, actually. Because Leo is the home sign for the sun, so it's the sign that is ruled by the sun. So that just exemplifies all the sun's natural core character traits as a planet in astrology. But in Aries, it actually strengthens it even more than the sun has on its own, because it's the sign where it's exalted. So, but because of that, the sun is happy in the Aries sign. So there isn't this tension normally in the life of the Aries sun person because they're in a happy placement. So it's like a more sort of it's more of just a happier place. But the moon Aries, the moon obviously naturally rules the Cancer sign, and the moon is also a soft, feminine sort of energy type when it exists on its own. So when it's in Aries, which is this dynamic, bold, straight to the point, masculine sort of sign, it doesn't like it. So the moon in Aries is not happy. The moon is quite sort of on edge. The moon is not very comfortable because it's kind of working opposite to its normal energy type that it would have on its own. So there's more of a tension. And also because the moon is normally your deeper, more instinctive reactions, to have your moon in Aries, your soul is naturally embodying all these Aries traits. Whereas if it's your sun in Aries, it's your ego driven, slightly more surface level personality, which is embodying these Aries traits, but it isn't your deeper internal soul. So if you can imagine, Aries is already like an aggressive dynamic sign. So to have it in your sun, you're just kind of showing that to other people, and that's kind of how you are on a surface level. But if it's your moon, it's how you naturally are. So all the aggression, all the impatience that Aries kind of signify, you're going to feel it even stronger if it's in your sun, as opposed to if it's in your moon, sorry, as opposed to if it's in your sun. Um, Taurus then. Now, Taurus is kind of the other way around because the moon is actually exalted, in other words, strengthened in the Taurus sign. So, other way around with Taurus, in that the moon is happier in Taurus than the sun is. So, the sun's natural character traits are supported and even strengthened even further than they would be if the moon was in Cancer, which is its home sign that it rules. Because, as I say again, if the moon's in Cancer, the moon's natural character traits coming out. But with Taurus, it strengthens the moon's natural character traits even stronger, the same as Aries does for the Saturn's character traits. So the moon in Taurus is very happy, so it's a contented position. So the emotional life of those people is going to be very stable, it's going to be very earthy, very grounded. Obviously, an earth sign moon in general is going to make you more emotionally grounded, so that's another good thing. So the sun in Taurus, now the sun's not so comfortable in a soft, feminine, slow moving earth sign, which is what Taurus represents. So the sun is sort of not as comfortable as the moon in the Taurus sign. So, if anything, even though the moon is your deeper, more instinctive emotional core, the moon is actually more comfortable in Taurus than the sun. So, if you have the sign of Taurus as your sun, you're actually going to be opposite to if it was Aries as your sun. So you're going to be more aggressive if you have Taurus as your sun sign, as opposed to if you have Aries, it's more aggressive when it's in the moon. But with Taurus, it's actually more aggressive when it's in the sun because the sun wants to push forward, it wants to be more masculine, but it's kind of somewhat held back because it's in Taurus, which is a soft, slow moving feminine sign. So there's a bit more tension there. Whereas with the moon's very happy in Taurus. So if anything, the moon is a lot softer, more feminine. It's not as aggressive in Taurus than the sun would be in the same sign. So next up, you have Gemini. So Gemini, I guess, is neutral of both pretty much because Gemini and Sagittarius are the only two zodiac signs that do not exalt anything and also do not fall anything either, interestingly enough. So the Gemini and the Sagittarius are the two zodiac signs where no planet is strengthened in their sign and no planet is dead in their sign either. So they're the only ones who have that. So they're both very, very neutral placements. So Gemini, I guess you could say the sun is probably more comfortable in Gemini than the moon is actually, though, because the moon is obviously feminine, as I keep saying. So Gemini is a masculine sign, energy type. So it is more in tune with the sun. Also, the sun is a fire planet and the moon is a water planet traditionally as their core energy type that exists as on their own. So because of that, Gemini is an air sign, so it's going to blow the fire of the sun better. So the sun actually does feel a little more comfortable in the Gemini sign than the moon would feel. So again, this is more like if the sun is in Gemini, it's going to be more surface level, light-hearted, more free and breezy. If the moon is in Gemini, you're going to have this sense of inner restlessness that already categorizes Gemini, but it's going to be enhanced a lot stronger than if it was your sun, because as I say, the moon is not as comfortable, so it's a bit more of a tense and sort of placement. So your inner restlessness that Gemini normally has, the anxiety and overthinking mind that Gemini always has, it's not going to be as strong in the sun. It's going to be stronger in the moon because it is a more intense, deeper emotional sort of thing. Cancer. So obviously, Cancer is the home sign of the moon. So the moon in Cancer is more comfortable than the sun is in Cancer. But because Cancer is a steep emotional water sign already, when it's your moon in Cancer, it's more intense than the sun in Cancer. So although the sun is less comfortable in Cancer than the moon is, the moon in Cancer is still more intense because the moon in Cancer, obviously, it's all of the character traits of the moon, like embodied basically or exemplified its indignity there. So all of the emotional tornadoes that cancers always go through as a sign is going to be enhanced twofold or tenfold even, if you like, when it's in the moon. In the sun, because the sun is masculine, it's kind of going to balance out the intense emotions of the Cancer. So obviously they're still going to have it, but it's going to be balanced out somewhat by the fact it's the sun and not the moon in there. And also the emotions won't be as intense as well because the moon is more deeper, like your soul, than the sun is as well. So having the sun in Cancer, it's going to balance it out a little bit. So the sun in Cancer is not going to be as intensely emotional as the moon in Cancer. They're not normally as moody, and they're more proactive actually, rather than just like crying all the time. The stereotype that Cancers cry all the time, it can be true, but not always. But people seem to think that's always the case. But it is more the moon in Cancer that would cry all the time. It's not so much the sun in Cancer necessarily that would cry all the time. Leo, so Leo's the other way around. So they are sort of they dignify, or in other words, rule the sign. Rule are ruled by the sun. Sorry, I can't speak today. For some reason, but yeah. So Leo is ruled by the sun. So to have your sun in Leo, it's a comfortable placement. Your moon is not comfortable in Leo as much as the sun is. So you are more aggressive if you have your moon in Leo than the sun, because the sun is just like, the sun's happy, so you're not as forceful in imposing this sort of prideful aura where you're like, I need to be given the royalty, I need to be treated like royalty. You're not so much putting that on other people if it's your, well, actually you are more in a sense, because the sun is more obvious to other people, it's more on the surface than your moon, as I said at the start. But the moon, you feel it more on a deeper level. So, kind of with Leo, if your sun's Leo, you're going to be more obvious about and more open about insisting that you're treated like kings and queens, like royalty. But the moon, you're less obvious that you want to be treated that way, and you don't show it as often, but you actually feel it at your core more intensely than if it was the sun in the same sign. So, it's almost like a Leo sun is going to be quite obvious about, hey, I feel the best, I want to be treated like the center of attention. The moon is not necessarily going to act that way, but they will feel that they want to be that way on a deeper level. It's like the moon in general is a need that you have in your life, and the sun is a want that you have in your life. That's another way to explain the difference. So you want to be your sun, you want to like appear to be your sun, but you need to be your moon. So it's like if you are going to be happy in your life, you need to be your moon. But you want to appear to be your sun, or you want to become your sun as you evolve throughout your life and you accumulate more knowledge and experience. You want to end up becoming your sun's personality and what that represents, but you already are what your moon's personality represents. So, yeah, I mean, the Leo sun is going to be more showy, it's going to be more obvious, but it's not as intense. Whereas the Leo moon is more intense, but it will be more private. It'll be more under wraps and not as obvious to other people. Now Virgo, I guess the moon is probably more comfortable with Virgo than the sun. Virgo is a feminine earth sign, and Virgo as an earth sign, it will stabilize the moon's, emotions. So, yeah, I guess the moon in Virgo is more comfortable. Uh, but the typical characteristics of Virgo, of course, are that they're critical, that they're sort of, they want perfection in everything. That will be more intense, though less obvious, if it is your moon in Virgo. If your sun is in Virgo, you're going to be more open and outward about criticizing people. You're going to be more assertive. That's a key word for the sun in general. It's assertiveness. So you're going to be more like you're putting out this image to the wider world of being, embodying these Virgo traits. Whereas with your moon in Virgo, you're not showing that to anyone apart from yourself. Like you're keeping it under wraps. So I guess a Virgo moon is going to want perfection. Well, it's going to need perfection more. It's going to be more critical and judgmental of other people. The sun is going to want to appear that it's like that, but not necessarily like that as intense deep down on the inside. So Libra is interesting because it is a masculine energy type, but the sun falls in Libra. So even though it's a masculine sign, the moon technically would be more comfortable in Libra than the sun would be. I mean, the moon's not very comfortable in Libra either, because air and water aren't overly compatible traditionally, but it is still better than the sun in Libra because the sun is fallen in Libra. It's its downfall for the sun. So your sun in Libra is going to obviously be, again, more obvious. I hope I'm not sounding too repetitive in this video, but yeah, as I say, the sun Libra is going to be more obvious. It's going to be like you're striving for justice, you're striving for, providing justice, being fair-minded. People will see you as that, and you're going to strive to act like that or become that throughout the course of your lifetime. The moon, you have that already. So the moon Libra is going to be more intense. It's going to be more serious than the sun Libra. The sun Libra might be more light-hearted. They're going to flirt around. They're going to be like picking up more partners romantically because they want to throw out this sense of romance and love, all that Libra and their Venus ruler sit would stand for. But the Moon Libra, sorry, you're going to need that more intensely, but you won't show it. So it's more like you need your relationships to be balanced for your own emotional security. Whereas your Sun Libra, you want to look like you're fair-minded and striving for justice in the eyes of the public. So you're going to show that because that's how you feel satisfied on an ego level. But your moon, you're going to strive to do that more in an intimate one-on-one romantic setting. Uh, and it's more of a need. And you'll do that to feel emotionally secure in yourself versus acting that way to make you feel better in terms of ego. So the Sun Libra will be, or the Sun in general, you act like your sun to feed your ego, but you act like your moon to feed your emotional self and your security. And to keep you happy in a more deeper internal level, that's why you will need to satisfy your moon. Whereas your sun, you'll satisfy that to be confident and to keep your confidence going and your sense of self-worth high. Uh, it's more like also your image, your like self-image. Whereas your moon is more like you'll be depressed if you don't fulfill your moon's needs, if you like, whatever sign that the moon's in. But your sun, you won't necessarily be depressed if you don't fulfill your sun. You're just going to feel less confident, more reserved, shy, timid if you don't fulfill your sun. But it's not like you're going to be deeply, deeply depressed, which you would be more likely to be if you're not fulfilling your moon's needs. So that's another way to describe it. So Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is where the moon falls, actually. It's the downfall for the moon. So actually, Scorpio, despite being a feminine energy sign, the same as the moon, the sun's actually more comfortable because it's not overly comfortable in Scorpio either, but it is more comfortable than the moon is for that reason. Again, opposite way round to the Libra sign. So Scorpio, it's going to be more intense if it's your moon. So Scorpio moon is going to be more sort of, I don't know. Scorpio moon is going to be quite sort of deep. It's going to be even more reserved and secretive. Now, of course, this is just Scorpio in general, but Scorpio moon is going to be even more reserved and secretive. It's going to be very, very sort of um it's going to be very dark. It's going to be quite sort of secretive, as I say. Um, you're going to be very, very emotional, but you're not going to let yourself feel that very often. The sun is more dominant. The sun Scorpio is more aggressive in the sense that, well, actually, it's hard with the more feminine energy signs. Like Virgo, just going back to them for a second, you are going to be more critical in a more intense level if it's your moon Virgo versus your sun Virgo. But the sun Virgo, while it's less intense of a need for you, it's because it's your ego, it's going to be more aggressively asserted toward the public. So I'm not sure if I'm really explaining this very well. It's actually more complicated than I thought it would be to explain this differences here between the sun and the moon, but it is more like your moon. If it's your sun Virgo, you're not going to be feeling this as much on a deep level, but because it's how you feel confident in yourself, how you satisfy your ego, it's going to be more aggressively thrown out at people. So, say like someone does something that you don't like and your sun is Virgo, you're going to be like openly critical of them for doing it. If it's your moon Virgo, you're going to feel more angry and sort of on a deeper internal level, really, really mad about it, but you're not going to tell them. You're going to say, oh, it's fine, but really it's really not fine, but you just don't tell them. Whereas the sun, it's like it kind of is okay, but you kind of exaggerate. The sun's also these themes of exaggeration. So it's like, say, if your son's Virgo and someone breaks something of yours that you really care about, if your son's Virgo, you're not going to be so deeply upset about it, but you are going to look more upset about it because it's your son, so it's more obvious. So you're going to be yelling at them, you're going to be like criticizing them very openly. If it's your moon, you're going to be more mad about it, but you're not going to show it. So with Scorpio, again, it's like Scorpio, it's more intense when it's your moon that's in Scorpio, but you are more aggressively dominant in a more sort of obvious open sense when it's your sun in Scorpio. So like your sun in Scorpio might like go and punt someone and want to get revenge, but it's more for show, whereas the moon Scorpio is more you're not going to look aggressive on the outside, you're going to keep it more under wraps, but it will be more aggressive, it will just be more internal and private. Sagittarius. So again, these are neutral kind of in both signs. Now, I guess because the sun is a fire planet, the sun's probably actually a lot more comfortable actually in a Sagittarius sign than the moon would be. And again, with fire signs in general, the moon is more restless. The moon is more aggressive. The moon's more intense in all the fire signs than the sun is in all the fire signs. But again, it's more private, so it's not going to be expressed as openly, but it is more intense. This sense of like restlessness, this sense of being overly honest, it's more intense. These are Sagittarius traits in general, obviously, but it's more intense in your moon, but it's less showy. So, say you're gonna really, really not like being tied down, you're gonna be like really freedom loving, if it's your moon. If it's your sun, you might be a little bit like scared of commitment, but not too bad. But you're going to tell people that you're scared of commitment. If it's your moon Sagittarius, you're going to be like, I'm so terrified of commitment, but I'm not going to say anything. Capricorn. Now, the Capricorn sign, to have that in the sun, is more sort of, it's actually more comfortable in the sun because the moon is actually weakened in Capricorn. So the moon's actually not as happy as the sun is in Capricorn. But yeah, the sun Capricorn, you're going to be more bossy. You're going to be more showy. You're going to be a bit like, you're going to show off any success that you achieve in your life in order to brag. You're going to show it off to other people. You'll be like, oh yeah, I got this job. I'm now the manager of this company. And look, I can show everyone I'm rich because look, this is my posh like car that I've managed to afford to buy. And you're going to be driving it everywhere. Be like, ha ha ha, I got the best car because, I got this, I'm a manager of this big company. I'm rich. So, I can afford this really, really good car. You're going to be showing it off. The moon Capricorn, it's like it's more intense, but it is more private. So moon Capricorn is going to be more sort of, as long as you have a nice amount of money in your bank account, you're going to feel emotionally fulfilled by that. If you have a relationship that's realistic, respectful, down to earth, you're going to, and you have a comfortable job, all these Capricorn things. If it's your moon that's in Capricorn, my moon is in Capricorn, then it's going to be like you need that to feel emotionally secure in yourself. But your sun Capricorn is going to be, you want that so that you can show off to everyone that you've achieved that. Aquarius. So, Aquarius, there is this whole theme of emotional detachment. This is more intense with the moon in Aquarius. Now, the sun in Aquarius, if it's not your moon that's in Aquarius too, and it's just your sun in Aquarius, then I'm not saying just, but you kind of catch the drift, hopefully. But yeah, so the sun in Aquarius, you're going to avoid emotions, but obviously it depends where your moon is in terms of how emotional you'll be on a more deeper internal level. But regardless of what your moon is, even if it's an emotional moon sign, if your sun is Aquarius, you are going to not look. You're not going to want to look emotional. You're going to avoid emotional conversations. You're going to keep a very logical, scientific approach at all times. But your moon Aquarius is going to be more intense again. So the moon Aquarius will literally be absolutely terrified of emotional conversations, commitment. They're going to be very, very freedom loving. um, it's going to be awful. Like, there's no chance of getting them to open up about their feelings if it's a moon Aquarius. But a sun, again, it obviously will depend on what your sun is, but a moon Aquarius, you're going to be very, very naturally you're going to want for your own emotional security to not reveal your emotions to other people at all. Sun Aquarius, it's not as deep, so it's like you assert these Aquarius traits more aggressively, but they're not felt as deeply on the inside. So it's more like you're going to be aggressive about the fact that, haha, I want to change the world, lead social change, lead a strike, like protest against things in society that you're not happy with more aggressively, more openly. If it's your sun, but your moon, you're not necessarily going to campaign to change the world as aggressively, but you're going to want to do it more on a more internal, private level. Moon. Now, the moon Pisces. Moon Pisces, again, it's a more sort of intense level. So the Sun Pisces, which is what I am, the Sun Pisces, you're going to want to strive to act like a Pisces. You're going to strive to be like embodying all these Piscean traits. But your Moon in Pisces is going to be, you're not necessarily going to strive to act like that because it's what you already are. As I keep saying like a billion times in this video, sorry, it might be getting quite repetitive. But I will leave timestamps down below if I can actually, so that you can skip to your sign if you don't want to obviously watch this whole video because it'll be pretty boring when I'm not obviously talking about your sign. So, anyways, yeah, I will try and do that. But as I say, your Pisces moon, you're not necessarily going to act like a Pisces because it's what you already are in your core of your soul. But you're going to be more emotional, you're going to be more sort of ungrounded, spiritual. All these Pisces traits are going to be more intense, but they're going to be more private and more hidden away inside of you. The Sun Pisces, you're going to be more open about these things. You're going to be open at your spiritual, open at your emotional, heart on your sleeve sort of thing. But it's not as strong. It's because it's your ego, as I say, that is tied in with. So if your moon isn't Pisces too, your Sun Pisces is going to be, oh, look, I want to act like a Pisces so that I fulfill my personality, I fulfill my ego. And what you want to act like. But your moon Pisces, you won't necessarily show that if your sun's not Pisces because it's what you need for emotional security versus what you need for validation. So yeah, I basically hope that kind of explains the core difference basically of the moon and the sun. I know I was quite repetitive. Basically, keywords are that the moon is more intense, the sign that the moon's in is more intense, but it's not obvious to other people, and you don't show it even to yourself sometimes. It's your core, it's your instinctive reactions, emotional reactions. Very, very private, very, very hidden. Think night versus day. Your moon sign is your nighttime, and your sun sign is your daytime. So it's like your sun's more illuminated, it's more obvious, it's more aggressive, but it's not as deep. It's like a surface level sort of representation of your personality. Of course, it goes deep. It is who you are because it's what you want to be throughout your lifetime. But your moon is what you are to be. Your moon is what you are already. So it's kind of like you don't need to work on your moon because your moon just exists. Your moon's already what it is. So for me, my moon's Capricorn, so I am already a Capricorn in my soul. That's how you could describe it. So it's like my soul is a Capricorn, so I don't need to act like a Capricorn like a Sun Capricorn does because I already am a Capricorn in my soul because it's my moon. And then my Pisces Sun is what I'm striving to act like and become like during my lifetime. So I have to actively act like a Pisces, but my moon is what I already am, and I don't need to like force it because it's like, well, my moon is my moon, that's what I already am. My sun is what I am striving to become, and it's more that you actively have to become your sun, grow into your sun, if you like, throughout your lifetime. It's like your sun is the personality that you grow into. The moon is the personality that you already are. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope that explained it quite well, and I'll see you next time.